Hello, this is a short video describing some strategies that students can use when taking an online class to be able to really understand assignments and then also track their assignments so that they're able to really feel like they have a good sense of what's going on in the class. So I'm going to go ahead and just get into the home page of one of my classes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to just set this up from a student view so that I'm going to have the screen set just like what you would see. And sorry if you see my fluffy cat in the video. I am recording this from home and she is helping. All right. So when you log into a Canvas class, different instructors will have things set up differently. So on my class, it's immediately going to go to the modules because that's where all of your work for the class is located. And what you want to do is every time that you see a new week, you're entering a new week, you see a new module, first thing in my class is going to be click on this checklist. Now you'll notice that there's this option to download the checklist. I would actually recommend doing that. I would download it and then I would print it out. The reason I would print it out is then literally you can use this to check off each item that you have to complete each week. So once you complete the welcome video, once you complete buying your books, once you write, literally you can check those off, and it's a really quick, easy way to track what you need to do. Now, along with just pointing out the checklist, also pay attention to what the titles are of different assignments. So it says, Welcome to English 9095. Read syllabus, course information. So those are titles of different pieces. So when you're tracking assignments, I'd go back to home and I'd be like, oh, welcome syllabus, course video reading and quiz. Okay. And then I'd click on that assignment. And when I click on that assignment, then there's going to be some text that pops up. There's going to be this video. There's going to be some other links. Oh, and look, and then there's also a link to a quiz. So from a student, you can literally track from that checklist to the assignment, open the assignment, and then see those individual pieces that you need to complete. And so making sure that you're really paying attention to titles is really, really important in terms of being able to track bigger projects, particularly in writing classes where projects may span several weeks and sometimes they'll even overlap. So it's really important to track what things are called. So now I'm under week 2 and I just clicked on project number 1, personal writing. Okay, well it's labeled project. So that keyword right there lets me know that this is probably something more than just a small practice activity or a small quiz. And so again, those keywords in titles can also sometimes give you hints. Then I read the purpose, overview, task, etc., and I'm going through this and I'm like, oh look, a video. So anytime there is a link in an online class, make sure that you're clicking on that to review what exactly it looks like, right? I get down here, there's an example. I'm like, oh, if I'm an English 90 student, well, let me take a look at an example of what this project looks like. Oh, but there's also this note that the prompt is different than the prompt okay, so this is an example, but it's not the example of the same prompt we have. And so by reading closely and reading all of those pieces, then you get the information that you need. Since this is a multi-leveled class, you'll also notice English 90 guidelines, English 90 requirements, example of English 90. Scroll down, English 95, English 95, English 95, English 90 rubric, English 95 rubric. So if I'm an English 90 student, I have to make sure that I'm paying attention to those English 90 guidelines, requirements, and examples and rubrics. If I'm 95, the total opposite. So again, those reading really closely, paying attention to the specifics of what is there, super, super important in understanding what it is that you need to complete and understanding the pieces. And then you'll see there's all these due dates, right? So I see, due date, pre-writing, rough draft, peer review, final draft, and there's these different dates. That tells me that on those dates, I'm going to have some assignments due. So I can be like, oh, okay, well, I know that pre-writing is going to be discussion number 2. It's on the 11th, so let me go back. like, okay, where is work? It's going to be due on the 11th. Oh, right here. Oh, look, pre-writing for project number 1, discussion 2. So by paying attention to those different due dates for the writing process, I can actually track it. I'm like, okay, here's the directions. Here's where I do pre-writing. Where do we do peer review? Oh yeah, look, here, peer review, rough draft. Completed peer reviews is due that day. Okay, keep scanning. Oh, look, final draft. Here we are. And so it's really important to pay attention and track those pieces through the week, so that you know when stuff is coming up for that project. Then there isn't any sort of confusion about like, oh, what project was this? It's all titled Project 1, so that you know that you can literally track that back. And in an online class, it is common to have to go back and review material that you covered. Just like if we were in a face-to-face class, say you were taking a chemistry class, and you'd been reading these chapters and taking quizzes, and then you're getting ready for like a midterm exam. And so you'd have to go back and review the material from those previous chapters to prepare for the exam. That's very similar to doing a bigger writing project in an English class, that you do have to go back to those pieces to make sure that you're tracking and understanding and reviewing as you go, so that you don't get lost or confused or off topic. So again, that tracking of titles is really, really important. And again, just paying attention to the little details that are listed on assignments, making sure that you're reading closely, that you're not just skimming. If you're skimming on assignments, you're going to miss stuff you need. It's as simple as that. And so you really do have to read closely. A couple other strategies that I wanted to point out. Paying attention to how things, to how pieces are labeled on a project. So for example, I'm just back on project number 1 again. And I go here and I see English 90 requirements, English 95 requirements. That word requirements, that would be an important piece to pay attention to, because a requirement means you have to do that. It's not optional. It's not like, oh, I can skip that. It's, I must do that. And so really important to pay attention to that detail, because if you miss that that's a requirement, well, then you could miss a whole part of what you need to be doing on the project itself. And of course, that would then most likely result in a failing grade. And so again, if something says requirement, like, you better know that you have to accomplish that. You have to achieve it. If it says something like hint or suggestion or optional, right, then those have different meanings that come with it. If you're asked to write a paragraph versus a whole essay, again, paragraph is very different from an entire essay. If there's a specific number, say it says something like 3 sources, or use between 1 to 2 sources, well, that means that you can use 1 or you can use 2, but you can't use 4. Or if it says no research, that literally means you cannot do any research. And so by really paying attention to the details, that will help you understand just exactly what it is that you need to complete. Okay. Now, one of the other tricks to doing this is, and I would do this if I was a student, anytime I'm given a major assignment, and I even do this now. In fact, I just had to write a report for an audit that we had on one of our programs. And so it was like this 3-page long report I had to type out. I printed out the directions for what I needed to include into that report so that I had them handy. And so what I would do is, like on Canvas, I can go through, I can highlight, I'm just going to right click, I'm going to copy, then I'm going to come down here, well, not down there, just kidding, wrong place. Go over here, open up my Word, and I just hit Control V. And what that will do is it's going to paste the assignment directions. Now what I can do, I have it in my own document, first of all. Then if I want to make things bigger or smaller, I could do that. I could also print it. So I could come over here and be like, oh, like, I'm just going to print this out now, right? Sorry. My computer is not greeting. Print it out. I could also go back home and I could do things like, oh, like, I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to some of the key things that are important for me to remember. I'm like, oh, writing prompt. Like, I need to make sure that I don't forget that. And maybe I'm a 95 student, so I'm like, oh, you know what? I really want to make sure that I'm paying attention to that. And so I could actually go through and even highlight some of the key pieces. I'm like, oh, final draft, I better make sure I keep that date in mind so that I don't have anything going on, right? And so it literally is a way where you can mark on your document. Now, if I had printed this same document out, I could also go through that assignment and literally write notes in the margins. It could be reminders. I could circle things. I could star things. I could underline. I could rephrase it just to make sure I'm understanding what it's asking. So all of those pieces are things that you can do to really help track and understand assignments. And these same strategies that I'm going over with you, they would also be the same strategies that you could use when, say, reading an article for the first time. Read different titles. If there's any subheadings in the articles, pay attention to those. If there's any videos, pictures, pay attention to those. If there's graphs or charts, right? Anything that's kind of a visual image, look at it. When you go to read an article, to make sure that you have a copy that you could write on or take notes on or highlight or underline so that you're really able to engage with the reading. That's really important. And then just the last note that I would have in terms of reading strategies in any class, again, I mean, we're looking online, but really any class, don't just read an assignment one time and assume you're going to remember it. Like, you need to read things multiple times in college and read things closely so that you don't miss key details. Some of you have probably heard the phrase, the devil is in the details. And that is often the case because in assignments, if you miss a detail, that could mean your entire project ends up being off. Well, then you spent all this time, all this work, probably were a little bit stressed over something that wasn't even on task. And so just by paying super close attention to those details, that can actually save you time later on. Also, there's a lot of research shows that the stronger reader you are in college, the more successful you'll be. And a lot of that does have to do with just because then you don't miss the details. You don't miss the key pieces that you need to make sure. And then I guess just my last kind of note to end with is that anytime you read something and you're like, I don't know that I get this, or I'm not sure if I'm understanding this, don't just sit there in questionable silence, right? Make sure that you are reaching out to your peers, to your instructor, to the writing center, to have someone else, maybe even a friend, family member, read it and see if they think that you're understanding it. There's lots of ways that you can reach out for help, but just make sure that you're taking that initiative. Being silent and having questions is not a key to success. Students that are really successful ask questions when they have them. And sometimes that's multiple questions on an assignment. And you know what? That's okay. Like, if that's what it takes for you to really grasp what it is that you need to do, then ask, right? Don't just kind of sit there and feel really unsure or feel like you don't know what you're doing. It's really important to reach out and make sure that you do fully understand assignments because, again, that's going to help you actually do the assignment and do well on it. So those are just a few pieces that I wanted to point out. Again, it's tracking and it's tracking through the weeks. So we are in week 3 right now. You all are working on peer reviews this week. Make sure that you, again, watch the advice for revising and editing project number 1. And then we're going to start at the end of this week actually switching to looking at more about reading. We're going to start picking apart articles and looking at how they can be used. And so again, make sure that you're tracking final draft of project 1 reflection. Then we're going to get to project 2. And so again, those titles are really, really important in an online class so that you can track what's coming up and what we've already done and how all the pieces fit together. Any questions, of course, as always, reach out. Other than that, I hope this helped give you some ideas about how to follow along on an online course, and again, use some strategies to really make sure that you're getting all the details that you need on assignments.